everybody, it's your girl Nisha, aka Nisha the Voice, coming in for another edition of Industry Conversations One-on-One. Live with me tonight. I am so excited because I have a fellow sister with me, Divine Nine Sister with me. Also, she is the author of her new book, of her new book of My Two Parents and My Two Homes. So I am definitely excited about having her on with me tonight. Everybody, welcome Shawntee White Yates to the show. Welcome, girl.
Hi, Nisha. Thank you so
Yes.
much for having me.
Well, thank
Excited.
you. Thank you so much for tuning in. For basically for coming on the show, and thank you to everyone for tuning in also. But I'm excited and I'm over the moon because I have a sister that is like myself who loves HR, who loves people. And we have a lot to talk about tonight. And first and foremost, I do want to get into the conversation. Let's talk about the book. And the reason why I want to talk about the book first is because there's so many things that are going on right now with our youth that I do want to get in and I want to talk about because we have so many young artists that are coming into the industry right now. And the title of her book, everyone, as I said earlier, is My Two Parents and My Two Homes. And this is a self-published book. Y'all, she published the book herself. So
Yes.
it was, yes, so kudos to you. It was published
Thank
this
you.
year. And I want to talk about it and I want to get into it because we have a lot of children who live in separate homes right now.
Absolutely.
That's the world, that's the culture that we live in now.
And more
It's no
so during
longer.
pandemic, right?
Yes,
So many
yes,
breakups.
yes, exactly. And there's so many things, that children go through from a young age, even to through adulthood, that are not really talked about as much as it should be. And I wanna talk about, like, where did you get the concept? Where did you, get the inspiration for this book?
Okay. So to be honest, I've had the inspiration about 20 plus years ago from my daughter. I have
Oh wow.
yeah, my daughter's 24, and around when she was 3 or 4 years old is when I started to observe her just based on, her interaction with her dad and I, and how she reacted, her emotional impact when we had to, alternate her being at each home.
Mhm.
And so the book is based on my observation of her reactions to that experience. And so Sierra is my inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, and I hear this a lot because, like yourself, I know that you're going from HR going into education
Yeah,
now. You see a lot of this, especially where you are right now in as an education specialist, and we see the difference how children change when they're going between two different households. It's almost like night and day.
absolutely. Yep.
And I'm a child. I'm a product of parents that were divorced. My parents were divorced at 12. But however, my father was pretty much at our house a lot. So it wasn't like we had to go through the separation of being at two homes. It was more so my dad kind of visit us more,
Okay.
at our home instead of us going over to, his house. So
Okay.
it wasn't, being separated, but having the opportunity to observe children that have been in separate households, it's like night and day. They're confused.
Right.
They don't know which way to turn, and we hear it a lot in the music. You have so many new young artists right now that talk about a lot of different personal things that they've been through with having fatherless households, without basically having to process the father not being in the home a lot. And you hear it. My son is will be 17 in May, so I hear a lot of the new music. I'm old school, so I hear a lot of the new
Yeah.
music.
I am too.
Yeah, that speaks of this, and I want to get your perspective. More so we see on TikTok, we see a lot of all of the on social media, that where a lot of people feel that people cannot co-parent anymore.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, what is your perspective, basically on that, on co-parenting?
So I feel the opposite. I think we can effectively co-parent. I think once you get past the emotions and you realize that it's not about you as parents, that it's about the child or children, that's the point at which you can effectively co-parent. And I think that speaks volumes for my situation. So although Sierra's dad and I broke up when she was much younger, we eventually got to the point where we were able to coexist and vacation together and do a lot of different things together, completely separate yet cohesively, right? So I think, as I shared just, previously, I think it's about getting past the emotions, right? And once you can realize that you are two separate entities, but the child is the priority, I think that's the point at which that you're able to effectively co-parent and make it a more amicable relationship.
Right.
Overall.
That's speaking real grown up talk, because you always hear of the baby mama drama and all this other stuff going on. And when two parents can actually coexist, that's the key word, everybody. Coexisting.
Coexist.
You can actually coexist and be in the same room together and not be at each other's throats. I think that kind of set the tone for children and set that tone that, hey, my mom and dad, they love each other, but they're just not together at this point in time. Like, they can actually, create a safe space for me, because I think when kids are in a space where they feel that parents are always kind of going at it all the time, it doesn't create that safe space.
That is true.
And observing kids, basically in the education system, just as you have, it creates a lot of chaos, especially in the classroom, and sometimes they can't focus. And then it's like, you, the educator, you get the feedback, and then you're thinking like, okay, this kid is really bright, but they may not be, receiving the attention that they need from home, and you become, their outlet. You become that outlet. You become, especially, and I want to go into talking about your learning lab, the learning lab also. You become their outlet, and you become that person that they begin to cling to, because they cannot relate to what's going on at home, but you can. You're like their safe space. And I know, like, your learning lab that you pretty much have right now, where you transition into from the corporate world, what was that like? Because I know what it's like to be in corporate, but being a Black woman, being in corporate and then transitioning, because the pandemic kind of just shook everyone up. But also, how was the transition going from corporate, now going into education, and then now, boom, you're blossoming and you're having all these great things that are going on right now, your book and then the learning lab. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I'll say there are two different sides to the transition, right? You have the side where it's like a relief. You're relieved from that corporate, drama and stringent, rigid schedule and long work hours, but you miss the salary. Then you have the relief side, which is you get to have a influential impact upon these children who are so kind of clingy, right? But they also need all of what you have to give. So I'll say, you have the two sides to it, right? There's the struggle of the financial versus the fulfillment, the fulfillment of just how you're impacting these children. And then when you're working it's a really unique situation at the Learning Labs, because I'm employed by Boys and Girls Club, but my site is at Harlem School of the Arts. And it's a really amazing program, because these organizations, along with, other government agencies, are governing this program where all of the children that are currently working remotely on a hybrid or blended learning have education specialists like myself, who are there to help them through this unprecedented period of time, right? Where they're not used to it. They're anywhere from 5 to 7. I mean, it's just an amazing program. So I am grateful that, my sorority sister and others were able to put me in this role. But I'm also happy that it's happening during a time where it's all like aligning with my goals and my dreams, right? Like it's almost like too coincidental. Like, how is it that I'm writing a children's book and I'm transitioning from, after a layoff during COVID, during the pandemic,
Yes.
but it's just like all coming together, and it just amazes me how things happen. So unforeseen, right? In this
Right.
unforeseen occurrence that went from a negative to a positive. And
Right.
and I'm just trying to make the most of it. I mean, I really enjoy working with the children passionately. Like that's always been a passion of mine. Anyone who knows me knows that I've always loved children. I mean, I'm like super aunt, try to be super mom. That's probably the biggest challenge of my life, being a
Mm-hmm.
mother. But you
Yes.
do your best, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I just think that the transition has really, I'm kind of just going with the flow, like,
Mm-hmm.
because it definitely came during a challenging time, with it happening all in 2020. And I'm just like kind of going full throttle, almost without thinking about it. But at the
Yeah.
same time, taking pauses to like really reflect, like, oh gosh, what am I going to do this? And then my life has always been fast paced. So it kind of goes along
Right.
with
I know,
that.
right?
And
And HR, and HR, typically a lot of people may not know this. HR is very fast paced. You have to always be on your toes, especially in the corporate world
mm-hmm,
because things go so fast. And
absolutely.
for several years I worked in private sector, medical field, and my last corporate area where I traveled a lot. And when
Uh-huh.
you travel a lot, there's so many
Mm-hmm.
things, you meet different people, and you
In here.
experience a lot. You experience a lot,
Absolutely.
especially in HR. And then you learn how to deal with people and personalities.
Oh
And
yeah. A
I think
lot of
that
them.
kind of, yes, I think that kind of grooms us all for our next phase of life. And just as you stated, like you have the freedom. And where I am now in my career, I have two different, careers, but where I am right now is pretty much where it's not like you're comfortable, but you're coming into your own. It's
Yeah.
like, when you're transitioning, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, hey, I have a children's book and I'm working with children. It just all fell into place.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I always feel that, whatever you went through previously is always molding you and shaping you for that next phase of life.
No
And
doubt.
this book, and then also now that you are working with children that need this, that need that
Mm-hmm.
type of personality that you have, that you've
Right.
trained over several years, and you sit back and you say to yourself like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
it's everything is coming to fruition.
It's all coming to fruition.
Yeah, so
And I
it's
don't know
it's
if I
it's
shared
weird.
with you that I also I have a company called Harlem Hugs that I started back in 2008. And
Hmm.
I don't know that I was totally ready for it back then. Like I started it during the recession. That
Yeah.
was my first layoff. And then so it's come back full circle. Here it is, my second major layoff, where I'm like bringing it back, and I relaunched it last year also. And it, again, Harlem Hugs, it
Right.
aligns with the children programming and activities. So yeah, it's definitely almost like, wow, when you pray,
Yeah.
it comes true,
Exactly.
comes to
Right.
life, right?
So let's talk about Harlem Hugs. And I know, like you stated, like it was, it took off in the recession. So,
Mm-hmm.
and now, you relaunched with, your
Mm-hmm.
book and, everything that's going on now. So what was the inspiration behind Harlem Hugs? I know that,
Yep.
with you have children and everything else, but what was the inspiration? You say, you know what, I'm going to start this company
Yeah.
and I'm just going to go with it.
So in 2008, my inspiration was my assistant at the time. She had an 8-year-old daughter who inspired me because she was just underutilized. Like, when you see a spark in a child and you're like, oh my goodness, this child is like a superstar in a shell.
Hmm.
So between what my daughter back then was in like the music, not the music, the commercials and acting and modeling, all of that. And then this little girl also just like had a spark. And I was like, you know what, we need self-esteem building events. So I started doing
Mm.
pageants, but with the goal of not like the beauty pageant, but like self-esteem building awareness. And then I also wanted to do like etiquette classes, but it was just not the right time for it. You know how sometimes you start something and you have the vision and the mission, but it doesn't come to fruition.
Right.
So back then, I think we ended up doing just two pageants, which went well. But fast forward, it just became appropriate for me to incorporate boys into the mission as well in 2020 and relaunch it with a different mission and vision, more broad, more around mentoring and, you know, kind of encompassing like life skills and financial awareness and wellness, health and wellness, all of these other aspects that have become so important.
Right.
So yeah, so that's pretty much in a nutshell how it came about.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, and for me, I want to touch a little bit on something that you just stated. Self-esteem, having confidence.
Mhm.
I think it's that's a lot that we see nowadays, especially in our youth, you
Yeah.
know. How important is, is it for especially parents and for those to kind of instill that in our youth of boosting their self-confidence and boosting their self-esteem?
It's beyond important. It could make or break a child. And I
Mm,
think that is the importance. That's why that's another area that has inspired me, because especially amidst all of the civil and, you know, just all of the drama we've been experiencing from 2020 to now, which I don't want to go into, but I think ultimately that alone is why I feel like it started with the children being younger, right? Like their
mhm.
parents were not uplifting them or pointing them in the right direction with positive influence and, you know, pushing them in on that path of, you know, kindness and righteousness or whatever the case may be. But I think it's so important for parents to remember that what you say and do to your children is so important,
It
not just
is.
now,
Mm-hmm.
but for their future development. And so I mean, I think it can't be overspoken how important it is to speak kindly to your children. I know it sounds like, okay, you know, it's not as important, but it's super important. And it could dictate the person that this child will become in their adulthood. Um,
Exactly.
what
Exactly.
what what you do and say to your children in their past will affect their present and future. So,
Hmm.
you know, I think it's pertinent that we speak positivity into our children now, and just and positively influence them, not just verbally, but like push them to do, you know, to fulfill their passions. Like
Hmm.
that's another area that I cover with Home Hugs, is just remembering it's not just always about chasing money. It's about
Right.
chasing your passions.
Mm.
And, you know, we all can't be monetarily rich, but you can be wealthy in mind, heart, and soul. And, you know, I know it sounds cliche and it sounds so like, you know, yeah, happiness, yeah, fairy tale, whatever. It's true. Like,
It
you know
is.
how I will sit here and say, no, I don't have my 6-figure income anymore and I miss it. But the peace of mind that I have right now cannot be accounted for.
Right. I agree.
Based on what I, you know what I mean? So again, following their passions, making sure that children are constantly uplifted, ensuring that you speak positivity. Like one of my girlfriends sends me morning mantras every day from a website, and I share it with the children and they love it. And it's a way for us to practice reading.
Right.
But
Right.
but those morning mantras that just speak positive reminders and thoughts, is nothing, you know, it's not rocket science. It's nothing like that they haven't seen or heard before, but it's just the way in which the words are incorporated into a paragraph that reminds them and
Right.
starts the morning off.
Definitely.
Yeah, right. Starts the morning
Definitely.
off very
Definitely. I feel that
positively.
positivity is very important, especially in our youth. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, parents play a very vital part in in that process, because
Mm-hmm.
again, children mimic what the behaviors that they see. So if you have a parent, like you said, that is consistently speaking negative, 9 times out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
children will reflect on what they see and what they've been taught. So
Inevitably, yeah.
yes. So definitely, I can definitely agree with that. And so on that note, let's go and talk about your next book that will be releasing July 1st. So
Yeah.
I want to get the scoop on that. So what do you have cooking, and what can we expect in this new book that's going to be released on July 1st?
So the next book is called If Only I Had a Sibling. And
Oh,
I know, for all the only children in the world, right?
yes.
So, so again, my kid being my only child, I watched her like yearning for playmates, even though she had a lot of friends and cousins and, people to play with. It's that constant yearning of, to have that person, brother or sister who lives in the home with you. And
Mm.
I know it definitely is a connection that can't be accounted for if you don't have it. But so that inspired me with this book. So again, content that I had started years, decades ago, but kind of edited and reincorporated into a book. So that's book number 2. If only I had a sibling, and that will be
That is awesome. Because we do have, a lot of children who wish that they had siblings.
yeah.
And I think coming from a person, and I always say the best writers are those that have experienced those things, because you can write from a place to where people can relate. And I know
Yeah.
we have so many writers that, write things of fiction and like everybody just kind of just
Yeah.
drawn to it. But I really feel that the best writers are those that have experienced it and they can actually capture an audience from a different perspective. I love that because you're telling a story that most children nowadays are kind of like, saying, "Dang, I wish I had a sister. I wish I had a
Right.
brother."
Yeah.
And those that do have siblings like myself sometimes.
Then you're like, if only I was the only kid.
Exactly.
No, I know.
Exactly. But
And
but
that's
I
what I
love
said.
my brother dearly.
I think with all of the books, right, you have either a direct relation or connection that the child will have, or even if they can't relate to it, they'll have something of interest within the story that they could even share with
Hmm.
someone that they know. So interestingly enough, I shared the book with a family that was I went on vacation last week and I shared the book with a family, and she came back and she said, my daughter said your book is interesting. And I said, interesting. That's a good word. That's like, I'm interested in knowing why she said interesting. She said, because she wants more. She wants to read more. Like she said, when is the next book coming? I need to see it now. so,
Oh,
so again, this child has 2 parents living in the
yeah.
same home, right? In St.
Right.
Lucia. But she found it interesting enough that she wants more and she wants the next book. So I kind of take all of this feedback in because it tells me that, again, whether it's directly relatable or indirect, I think everyone can find some form of enjoyment in reading
Yes.
it. And I
Because
mean, they're 26-page books, but again, going back to how you started, like there's so many people that are affected in so many ways. And I think nonfiction books are important. Yes, the fiction books are fun and, everyone's doing them, especially now, to kind of uplift spirits of the kids
hmm
when they're doing reading and to try to capture their attention and make them
hmm
more excited about reading books,
right.
right? But you can find excitement in nonfiction as well, depending on
Right.
how it's written, the colors, the pictures, the photos. That's why it's all
Yes.
about using every color in the rainbow and some,
Hmm.
so I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
I remember being in the education system and basically working in education, um, capturing children's attention, especially younger children, with colors, shapes, different
yeah.
types of things that can capture their attention and keep their attention because their attention span is so short.
Oh, forget it.
So,
Yes.
I think that is wonderful when you have a younger, child that is interested in reading because sometimes it takes like pulling teeth to get kids to read now.
Absolutely.
Everything is more social media. They want
Oh my
social media.
goodness.
They want to do a
Devices. It's just
TikTok.
devices.
Yes, yes.
YouTube.
So,
Like even
mhm.
I was trying to read a book with one of the students today and I said, okay, select the book. He went to YouTube to select the book. I'm
Yes.
like, no, not a book from
Uh-huh.
YouTube.
So,
He's like, well,
and
I
I
can
was
pause it and read it.
Yes, and I was
No.
just talking about this today because I was saying, growing up, back then when we were in school, it was a lot of things that we did not have access to. I
Right.
remember these big computers that, in second grade that I would just rush to in the back, wanted to be first one in the back of the class. because
Right.
I wanted to play on the computer all day. I wanted to,
The Big
play math
Apple.
games. Yes, the Big Apple computer, right?
Remember that? Like they literally
Yes,
look like an apple.
exactly.
Oh my
And
God, that was so
I remember the little floppy disk that had the little slice, and I'm
circle in
telling
the
my
middle.
age.
Yep.
Yeah, and where you would put it in and the teacher would go through everything, and she was like, "Okay, we're going to do math problems today." And then she would put it in, and then you would wait for it to boot up. Took so long for it to boot up.
Oh
And
my
then,
gosh.
yeah, and then you're doing math problems, and then you see the little man go across the
Oh my
screen.
God, Nisha,
Yeah,
you are definitely telling your age. You just sharing that. We're
I know,
there. We're in the same
I
same
know.
century.
Yes. So, and I was telling someone today, I said, I remember, even back in high school, we had paper tests. Now they have everything now where they can
Digital.
take tests
Digital.
online. Yes, everything is so much digital now. So it's crazy that when you look
Yeah.
back of how you were brought up and to now this new generation
Mm-hmm.
that that are coming into their own and also coming into the workforce, it's becoming difficult now,
Yeah.
because this new generation, they're expecting to make six figures. They're
Oh,
expecting to make the top dollar
immediately.
value.
They
Yes.
want the immediate gratification, right? They don't want to have
Yes.
to wait 20 years while they build tenure to make the six
Right.
figures. They expect it within 3 to 5 years or sooner. And
Right.
guess what? They have the means to get it because of the digital world that we live in now, right? Social
Exactly.
media, as an
Mhm.
impressionist or like
Yes.
online, you find an online platform you could potentially make.
Okay. So and on that note, before I let you go, but on that note, when we just talked about transitioning,
Yeah.
we were taught survival skills, right? We were
Right.
taught to survive. We were taught to,
Hustle.
when certain things happen, you get yourself up, brush yourself off,
Yeah.
and you keep it
Yeah.
moving, you keep trucking, you find something else that you can do. And now, there are so many different avenues that where kids can make money now online. You've got
Mm-hmm.
investments, you got different types of things that are at their fingertips now to where they can make that lucrative income, even, being at the young age of 10, and,
Yeah.
and start their own businesses. And
Yeah.
I think it's great. The only thing that I feel that, is hurting our youth at this point in time is having those survival skills, learning
Mm-hmm.
those survival skills,
Yep.
because nobody expected a pandemic to come. No one expected COVID to hit, and for us to be going in almost year two of
Right.
actually being this way, where we cannot talk to each other, can't gather, can't see our parents or even our close family as much as we want. So I think a lot of times when we talk about transitioning and life
Mm-hmm.
skills and things of that nature, I think that's one thing that our youth, and even in the industry we see it all the time. You have these one hit wonders. They come out, they make a great song.
Oh yeah.
They make all this money, and then they have no sense of what's my next move. It's like, oh,
Right.
I'm gonna be a star forever.
ABC.
Yeah,
ABC.
you
They
know,
don't have it.
you
Yep.
you do not have a backup plan. You don't have where you're saying, okay, look, I'm gonna get as much as I can. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna do acting. I'm gonna invest. It's
Mm-hmm.
more so about, oh, I'm gonna get in this industry. I'm gonna, make hits and things like that. But you have to understand too, you can make that one song, and the rest of
That
the
could be it.
album, that could be it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the more so of the survival skills is just, it's just not there for our youth, and I would
Yeah.
love to see that back, because I remember in high school,
Yeah.
home ec taught us a lot.
Right. You remember that? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
and even just not just survival skills, Nisha, is coping skills. Like
yeah,
they
uh-huh,
want to break down and like melt down from minor things, first world problems,
yes,
right? First world
yes,
problems. So I think, and it's funny that you brought that up. I literally just had that conversation with my daughter. I was like, you have to have A, B, and C. I
yep,
said, it's the
mm-hmm,
reason we made you get your degree. It's the
yep,
reason you cannot just think that your music, your this, your that, whatever it is you want to do, those passions, yes, you
yes,
want to fulfill them, but have A, B, and C. Include
exactly,
they can all be three passions, but they should
yes,
still be three options, right?
exactly,
and
exactly,
and that's one of the things I try to inculcate into all of the children and youth that I speak to, just to kind of
yes,
remind them.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's just more, that's to me, I think that's excellent. You know that, and I had the opportunity to listen to your daughter's song. Tell her I
Yeah.
said kudos. Love it.
Thank you.
Keep
Thank
striving.
you. I
Positive
love your songs.
messages.
I was like, oh my goodness, you have a lot of little hits. I was like, and they're all vibey. I'm between voodoo and circles. I was like, ooh,
Thank
they
you.
catchy.
Thank
You're welcome.
you. Thank
You're
you. And
welcome.
yeah, I mean, and from one writer to the next, one day I'll write a book. I think I
You
got a
will.
lot
You will. It's
to talk
yes.
about.
Content. All you need is content, and then put it down, upload it. It's not. It's one. I'm going to do a workshop with because I have a few aspiring writers in my Harlem Hugs group, and I was like, I'm going to do a
Awesome.
workshop to show top 5 steps to get it done. Like it's
Yeah.
yeah,
There
just
you
to
go.
make it
I mean,
happen.
yes.
It's not
And
rocket
I
science. I
think
mean, especially during COVID, the Library of Congress and Copyright Office said so many people have written books during COVID, during the last 2 to 3 years, that the process has been delayed with everything, like from
wow.
submitting documents to getting emails and documentation back. So it's at an all-time high
Yeah.
as far as the number of writers. So
Right. But it's
now's
the
the
perfect
time.
time. I think it's
Now's the
more so
time.
the perfect time
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
everyone's at home. Everyone's at
Yeah.
home. You're
Yeah.
teleworking. You're trying to find additional ways of income, and this is the perfect time to talk about
Yeah.
a lot of things that that are pondering kids' minds or pondering, adults' minds, such as myself. And I think that, just as you said, of learning how to write a book, great workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely let me know. Hit me up when you're doing that.
I
I would love to
will.
partake and sit in on that as well. I think
Yes.
that is great information, especially for, those that are watching tonight. If you're interested in writing a book, I'm pretty sure that, such as, Shawntee and other individuals that would be more than happy to help you in, on your journey to writing your book. You never know, you could write an autobiography about yourself and
Mm-hmm.
the obstacles that you faced, and that can help everyone or help someone that are going through the
Yeah.
same things that you're going through. And just as your book that we just talked about, my two parents, my two homes, can help children around the world understand that parents can coexist. There's a
Mm-hmm.
such thing as co-parenting, and regardless of a lot of the negativity that has been placed out, especially social media or just basically just the narrative in general, that we people can't co-parent, which that's not the case. Two
No, it's not
parents
at
can
all.
basically live in two separate households and raise a very successful child. um
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that, and I'm glad, Shawntee, that you wrote a book that can pretty much change that narrative.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much,
Oh, thank
for
you.
the inspiration and being able to write that book. Before you leave me tonight, though, I do want you to tell everyone where they can purchase your books and how they
Okay.
can reach you on social media.
Okay. So the book can be purchased at this time on the book patch, or you can get copies from me. But the bookpatch.com. So it's the book, PATCH.com. And the actual link is on my two parents and my two homes Instagram page. So at my number 2 parents and my number 2 homes. There's the link in my bio. And then you can also reach me at Harlem S Factor on Instagram, or Harlem Hugs on Instagram. And then the same for I'm on, what is it? My website is www.harlemhugs.com. And all of my social media is from LinkedIn, is my full name, Shawntee White Yates, which is it's written on the actual book, Shawntee White Yates. And you can also go to, where else am I? Facebook, full name, Shawntee White Yates, also harlemhugsllc.com. So I have tons of social media. If you Google me, I'm Googleable. Just Google Shawntee White Yates and you can find me. But yeah, definitely support. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. It's great exposure, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll stay in touch. We'll
Yeah,
that'll have us
definitely.
doing some other things together. And
Yes,
are you still
yes.
in the Carolinas? Are you still in the Carolinas?
Yes,
You
I'm
still
still
down
in the
there?
Carolinas.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
definitely, definitely.
Excellent. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll definitely connect again. But I
Yes.
appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Shawntee. And shouts out to Press Magazine for sponsoring Industry Conversations 101. Shouts out to Ben. Thank you so much for
Thank
connecting
you,
us.
man.
Yes, yes,
Making the
definitely.
connections. Networking
Yes.
guru. He is a networking
Yes.
guru.
He is. Love
No
him.
doubt.
Love him.
What? All about the women, right?
Yes, it is.
All
Women
about the
women
women and the,
empowerment.
yes.
Yes,
It's
all
important
day.
though to have
It
an
is.
advocate such as him. So,
Yeah, definitely. But
all right.
Shawntee,
Well,
thank you
thank you.
again for coming on
Okay.
Industry Conversations.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.